This meant a lot to me. 10 people from hospice came. 10 from hospice. This meant a great deal to me. Most of them brought their families. Pam Lawson's mother came. Her mother. A lot of them brought their children. One after-hours nurse brought her teenage daughter. Her teenage daughter proceeded to tell my husband and myself that her mother had worked for hospice for quite a while and that she had never attended a wake or a funeral service for any of her hospice patients. But she'd come to Mom's. That meant a lot to me. That nurse meant a lot to me. And I had to wonder why, if Mother was truly unresponsive, which I never thought she was, but if she truly was unresponsive, what about my mom that touched their lives and your lives? She was quite a gal. She was quite a gal. You see, Mom was a nurse and a teacher. She was a lady with Alzheimer's, but she was no victim. Mom knew the only mark in life that lasts and is worthwhile is the mark you make on people's lives. If you do a job just for a paycheck, just to get a house, just to get a car, just to get the bank account, when it's all said and done and it's your time to be lowered in the ground, it doesn't make a hill of beans. It's sandcastles on a beach. It's the mark you make on lives is what counts. When my father passed away, one of our oversights was picking out pallbearers. It was less than an hour before Dad's funeral, and my dad had asked 3 people to be pallbearers, but I hadn't even thought about it. It's totally slipped my mind. My dad was the head maintenance man for Blue Cross Blue Shield of the whole state of Tennessee. He had some guys that worked for him that were kind of rough. My dad was tough, but he was fair. My dad had chewed these guys out many times, but he also went to the mat for them many times. I walked up to ask 1 or 2 of these guys if they'd be pallbearers. They had already decided that they were going to be pallbearers without even being asked. They were arguing and debating among themselves who had the honor of carrying my father's coffin and who was going to follow behind. You see, my dad made a mark on those guys' lives. My mom touched many lives and left her mark. I know that she touched many of y'all. I'm grateful for her and her lessons. I'm grateful for Alzheimer's. I do not think that if it were not for Alzheimer's, that I would have slowed my pace good enough to stop and smell the roses with my mother. The value in her and other Alzheimer's is locked away. You have to invest the time. You have to invest the time to get them to know you and you to know them. There are certain things that are hardwired that an Alzheimer's patient never forgets. Mother never forgot she was a nurse. She had high standards. And when someone come in to our home that did not have those high standards, Mother was unresponsive. You weren't in her world. But the ones that took time to connect, she touched their lives. touched my life. When you lose someone, like my parents, it leaves a huge hole in your life. My mom and dad and my grandmother were my best friends. I don't have a life to go back to. I used to be a mechanic. But after caring for my mother for 14 years, I have no interest in mechanicking. I don't have a clue what my future is going to be like. But I do know one thing. If I can change a few people's minds about Alzheimer's, that's what I want to do. I want people to see their value and to learn the lessons they have to teach me and everyone else. They have value. My mom was a nurse and she was a teacher, and I'm very grateful for her. I'm very grateful for the West team in particular, but not just the West team, because we had people from all the teams in our home. I cannot thank you enough. The debt is far too high for me to pay for everything that y'all did from top to bottom, for putting up with me, and for loving my mom. I want to especially thank Dr. Melvin. She bent over backwards. She went to the ends of the earth for myself, my mother, and my family. And I'm very grateful. And I thank you for your time and your attention. Thank you. Dr. Melvin wanted me to tell you about this book. My mother loved audiobooks. She loved music. And to keep her mind busy, occupied, and entertained, we had a audiobook club that I would download a couple of books for her every month. And to her interest was what we mostly listened to. But after she died, I was going to cancel that. No, I kind of like books too, so I downloaded this book, audio style, Dancing with Rose. I highly recommend this book. This lady, the author, her mother had Alzheimer's, and she did not handle it very well. And she immersed herself as an observer at first, and then she realized she needed to take it one step further, and she was a caregiver in the Alzheimer's unit. And she puts it in so much better wording than I have ever could imagine. But I laughed out loud, I cried out loud to this book. But she talks of the gifts, the lessons, the humor, the quick wit of Alzheimer's. And I've listened to it 4 times. My husband's sick and tired of this book. But it is very good, and I highly recommend it. And if you do want it on audio, I download it from audible.com, and they will allow me to burn like 2 per purchase. And I've purchased about 4 books, hard copies like this, and given to people. And but this one I brought for Dr. Melvin to let y'all pass around, or if you'd rather utilize your drive time or whatever to audio, then I can bring some of those out.
Thank you very, very much. Is there any questions that we have? Thank you, and I appreciate everything that everybody does, and I especially appreciate you today. Thanks.